So Google's new Pixel Watch, Watch 3, calculates a readiness score based on sleep, resting heart rate, and resting heart rate variability. But does that make sense, and is that any good? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about the biology of stress and relaxation and recovery, and we're going to talk about the statistics. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody is happy and healthy and doing well and having a chance to get out and exercise. So let's take a step back to basics and do biology 101, because that's what we need to do in this case. And so as you can see on this picture, on the one hand, we experience a variety of different stresses. It may be mental, as in we may be concerned about what's going on in the world, or maybe about our finances or family or any number of things. And it can be physical because of the exercise that we've engaged in and other physical hardships that we may be enduring, including, of course, illness and disease. And on the other hand, we have de-stressors. So sleep is one of the major recovery mechanisms, of course. It rejuvenates the brain and the body. But there are also other things that we can, and many of us do, of course, be it yoga, relaxation response, spending time with loved ones, families, pets, all of which contributes to de-stressing us, undoing the stress that we've experienced. And at the end of the day, all the stresses and all the recovery that we've experienced is captured in our resting heart rate and to a lesser extent in our resting heart rate variability, simply for the reason that heart rate variability is less stable and more fickle. We'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But if you want to understand what the net balance of all the stresses that you've experienced throughout your entire life and all the recovery that you've experienced throughout the entirety of your life is, what you need to do is to measure your resting heart rate first thing in the morning before you get out of bed. And that's it. And that tells you how ready you are. And one of the important things that we need to understand here, of course, is that sleep, being an important part of recovery, impacts directly what your resting heart rate and resting heart rate variability are going to be. So when Google now tells us that they calculate a recovery score based on sleep, resting heart rate, and resting heart rate variability, that has me very puzzled. Because once you have resting heart rate, what else do you need? And as we've just said, that resting heart rate reflects all the sleep. So from a biology perspective, or even from a statistical hypothesis perspective, this is a complete and total dumpster fire. I simply do not understand how anyone can be so ignorant as to do something like this. And it gets even worse when we sort of look at the statistics side of it. It violates the most basic things in statistics in two different ways. First of all the variables in a statistical analysis are supposed to be independent of each other. Well, guess what? As we just said, heart rate and heart rate variability are not independent of sleep. They're impacted by sleep. So right there, any regression that you do or anything like that, or any equation that you establish like that, just simply makes no sense. And to make things worse, this is of course going to manifest itself as what is called in statistics an autocorrelation, which means that these variables are very highly correlated, such as good sleep, which provides good recovery hopefully, is going to give you a lower heart rate than you would have had otherwise, a lower resting heart rate, and also lower heart rate variability. And if measured correctly, resting heart rate and resting heart rate variability are also going to be autocorrelated. So why would you bundle all three of them and calculate a score based on them? It just makes no sense. I really don't understand what Google is doing here and why they have such a poor understanding, quite frankly, of basic biology and basic statistics. But somehow they do. I don't understand why. So what should you do here? Well, it's actually very simple, folks. If you want to know how rested you are, you don't need a recovery score, whether Google's or Garmin's. As some of you might know, I have another video that I did maybe a year or so back about the Garmin recovery score, which is much more convoluted and makes just as little sense as the Google one. But in either event, what you need to do is simply measure your resting heart rate first thing in the morning before you get up. You can do it manually, you can do it with a watch, you can do it with a phone app. There is a variety of different ways. And what you need to look for is whether your resting heart rate is within your normal range. This is where having an app could actually be quite useful, because if you have a good app, it's going to calculate your normal range for your heart rate, and also for heart rate variability potentially. And all you need to do in the morning after you've measured it is to see, is your heart rate within your normal range? If it is, go for it. If it's a little below or a little above, well, you may want to be careful and you may want to think about what it means. Did you work too hard and have poor sleep, or are you getting sick or something else? Obviously no app and no watch is going to tell you that, so you need to sort of think a little bit about that. But it's really that simple. You do not need any readiness score. You do not need any recovery score. All you need is your resting heart rate. Now, why not heart rate variability? Well, it turns out that heart rate variability, while potentially very useful in principle, is very fickle. It's very unstable. If I were to measure my heart rate variability right now, it would be different based on whether I was just sitting still, if I'm sitting here and talking, or if I'm sitting here and typing on my keyboard. And that is also going to manifest itself when you're lying down in bed and measuring it. Heart rate variability is going to be impacted by your breathing pattern, whether you're wiggling your toes, whether your head is raised or not. And so, much as I'd love to be able to use heart rate variability, it is just too fickle, whereas heart rate is more stable as a measure. And so, that's what you need. Figure out if you're going to do it manually, if you're going to do it with an app, if you're going to do it with a watch, whatever works for you. And then, either keep track of it on an app, keep track of it manually, understand what your normal range is. And if you're within range, you're all good. And you're outside of the range, well, think about what might be going on and how you need to adjust. Certainly the exercise that you're going to do, but it may also be that there is a warning there. I have actually found heart rate variability very useful in addition to heart rate when I've been on the verge of being sick, and my heart rate variability has been factors of magnitude too low or too high, so way out of my normal range. In that context, I find heart rate variability to be actually quite useful as a warning sign, in addition to the heart rate. And let me emphasize that, in addition to the heart rate, not in lieu of the heart rate. And so, once again, the Google Readiness score is a dumpster fire. It makes no sense from a biology point of view. It makes no sense from a statistical point of view. And if you buy a Pixel Watch free, just ignore it. The final thing that is good for you to do is just sort of ask yourself how you are feeling. Our perception of how ready we are is actually very accurate. It has been proven scientifically to be very accurate in terms of how rested we are and how ready we are to exercise and do other things. So if you sort of do those two things, measure your resting heart rate in the morning, and then ask yourself, how am I actually feeling? Do I feel rested? Do I feel ready? Between those two, you'll be all set. No need for any convoluted, screwed up readiness measures. So with that, I think we've come to an end. I hope you found this useful, amusing, interesting, entertaining. Please leave me your questions or comments below, and be well. Take good care of yourself and go out there and exercise. Take good care. Bye-bye.